Hello, it's Jason Carlson in my garage where it's about 32 degrees and a bit cold, but I'm going to demonstrate how I rip off the sides on the pick blank. Well, it's not really a blank, but I've set up a cleat on the side of my bandsaw with a very slim blade, and I'm going to run it through like that, lined up. Make sure that the measurements are both equal in the front and the back, otherwise the pick is going to end up kind of skewed off on one side. I've sanded down the bottom so that it's flat and lays flat on the bandsaw. So this needs to be done very slowly, otherwise you end up with some really ugly stuff. So please forgive the noise. That then separates the two sides. What's really nice is this gives you an opportunity to use this side, and when I rip the other one off, to mount it onto another piece of steel, and you can get basically two picks from one. So now I'm going to flip it around and run it through the other way, and then we'll go over and do some drilling to set the pins. Now we're over at the drill press, and I've tried to do this multiple times without a drill press, freehand with a power drill. It always turns out sloppy and ugly, and just probably the most miserable holes that you can possibly make. I also found out the hard way that you need to replace your drill bits frequently. They'll make it through probably 4 or 5 picks at the most before the hardened steel wears the tip of the bit out, and then they become pretty much useless on anything made of metal, but they do work really well on on the wood. So you want to get it lined up where you want the first hole to be, get it centered as much as you possibly can. I've had the gear or the belt ratio set up so that the drill bit turns as slowly as possible, so that when it hits the steel and it bites, it's going to actually take the material away versus try to spin its way through it. That will just dull your drill bit. And I'm going to apply a tremendous amount of downward pressure on the handles, so that once it starts to bite in, I'm only going to push hard enough to push through the steel, and then let off and let it slowly push through the rest of the wood. So let's drill a couple of holes. Now I'm applying pressure. You can see the bits of steel coming up. And we're through. Nice and slowly pushing out the other side so I don't get tear out. One beautiful 1/8 inch hole pushed right through. And then set it up to drill a second hole, and as you can see, it's become magnetic from the friction going through the steel. I try not to push the bit through the plastic or acrylic. It'll fracture. Wood's very simple. Contact, more pressure, steel starts coming up through the steel, ease off on the pressure, push it nice and smooth through the rest of the handle. go. 2 nice 1/8 inch holes through. And now we'll get set up to push some pins through. On top of the vise is the pick, and I'm going to use a cyanoacrylic super glue. This is Gorilla Glue, and it's a gel which will hang on to the wood a little better. What's nice is it's cold enough out here it's not going to set very fast. What I've also done is I've taken the 2 pins that I'm going to drive in and I ground them on my belt grinder so that they go into the material fairly easy. Set that one. Very light tapping. Just want to make sure it pokes through the other side. And this one. Now you can also set it and peen it just a tiny bit. Push that through just a bit more. Make sure you've got some open space on the other side for it to go through to. Otherwise it'll flare out and it'll break the wood. This one's nicely done. There's no splits in it. And now I'm going to put some accelerator on the glue and let it sit for a couple of days, and then we'll start the final finishing project.